Alright, Section 121, cleanup standard selection, remedial act with the President shall help the remedial action determine the necessary for the carry out with the Section 104 with the secure with the 106 with the incorporate with the Section extend with the practical national contingency plan with the provide with the cost effect with the response available when the cost effect has been proposed. The almost remedial act of the President shall take into account with the total short, long-term costs shall actions include the cost of the operation maintenance for the entire period during such activities and will be required. General rule of remedial action will the treatment of the permanently with the reduce the volume of taxes for the mobility of the head substance pollutant with the contamination with the principle of the element with the preferred with the other remedial action not involved with such treatment. Off-site transport, disposal of the hazardous substance and contaminated material without the treatment and should be relief favored alternative remedial action with the practical treatment and technologies are available. The President should consider the assessment permanent solution. Alternative technology treatment is a source of recovery technology within a whole area in part with the result of the permanent significant decrease of the taxes mobility volume of hazardous substance pollutant and contamination make it the assessment of and such for the specifically address the long-term effectiveness of various alternatives assessing alternative remedies for the action. President should also make minimum taken into account the long-term uncertainties associated with the load and land and disposal. The goal of the objective of the Requirement Solid Waste Disposal Act, the percent and toxic mobility, prosperity, propensity, bioaccumulated such hazardous substance in the hair, the constitute with the short, long-term potential adverse health effects from the human exposure, long-term maintenance cost, potential future remedial action cost, the alternative remedial action question where to fail the potential threat with the human health of the environmental associated with the excavation, transportation, redisposal. Contamination. The President shall select the remedial action to protect the human health of the environment over the cost effect of the utilize the permanent solution, alternative treatment of the technology, resource recovery technology, minimum extent practical. The President shall be remedial action not appropriate with the reference of the subsection. President shall be public explanation of the why remedial action involved the rest of the reductions are not selected. Alright. The President may select the alternative remedial action, may even the object with the subsection with the not such with the action with the big with the practice of the facility site with the have within similar characters making stuff of the selection presidents may take into account the degrees of the remedial action with the parties interested within such site. For your view, the president will select the remedial action with the result that has substance pollutant with contamination remaining on the site of the president shall have a review of the remedial action not less than each of the 5 years initiation the remedial action ensure the human health of the environment being protected with the remedial action implemented in addition to the review of the judgment president of the action appropriately to the site of the accordance with the section 104 106 the president shall take and require such action of the president to report to Congress unless the facilities which are such for the review and require the result of the reviews and action to take the result of the reviews. Our degree of the cleanup of the remedial action select with their own selection otherwise require that they agree with the President of the action should be the degree of the cleanup of the heads including the contaminants, the release of the environmental control, the further release of the minimum of the protection of human health of the environment such remedial action should be relevant and appropriate under circumstances presented relief of the threat and relief of the substance pollutant contamination with respect to the hazardous substance pollutant the contamination remain outside of any standard with the requirement criteria limitation under federal environmental law, included but not limited to Texas Substance Control, Safe Water Drinking Act, Clean Water Act, the Clean Water Act, Military Protection Research for Sanctuary Act, Solid Waste Disposal Act. Any propagated standard requirement criteria of the limitation of state environmental facility list citing the law more stringent than the federal state of the requirement criteria limitation, including the state of the standards of the requirement criteria of the limitation of the program and authorized as the delegate within the trainer of the statute considered if in subparagraph A has been identified as President and state within time manner. It allegedly applicable to hazardous substance pollutant with the contamination with the relevant and appropriate under the circumstance of the relief of the and relief of the hazardous substance pollutant contamination from the remedial action selected in section under section 104 under section 106 require that the completion of the remedial action level the same with control of the hazardous solution substance pollution contamination with the least attained legally applicable to relevant and appropriate state requirement and limitations that such remedial action should require a level the same with the control of the less attained maximum contamination level. The goal of the establishment of the Safe Drinking Water Act, the water quality criteria established in section 304, 303 of the Clean Water Act, which such goal of the criteria relevant and appropriate under circumstances of the release of the threat and release. Alright, in determining whether or not any of the water quality of the Clean Water Act relevant and appropriate under the release, threat, and relief, the President should consider the designated potential surplus of the groundwater environmental media effect for the purpose of the such criteria that developed and last information available. For the purpose of the section process establishing alternative concentration limited to otherwise applicable with the hazard concentration of the groundwaters under subparagraph A may be not establish applicable to within paragraph of the process. Assuming the point of the human exposure beyond the boundary of the facility, the is a conclusion remedial investigation feasible study except where there are known projected points of entry such for the groundwater surface above the basis of the measurement of the projection. This will not be statistically significant for the constitute for the groundwater such for the surface where the point of the entry, any point where there is no reason to believe that accumulation of constitute the more may occur downstream. The remedial action could be the enforceable measure for the preclude human exposure to the contaminated groundwater at any point between the fiduciary boundary and all known projected points of the entry of the groundwater into the surface water. All right. Then the assumed point of the human exposure may be known as the projected entry of the call of the subgravity after the apple the K for the present selection of the complaint. The subsection B1, the proposed remedial action does not permanently significantly reduce the volume, toxicity, mobility, hazardous substance, pollutant contamination proposed. The disposition waste generated associated with the remedial action schedule for the present land disposal and referred to as Clause 2. The exemption provided in Clause 3 and 4 standards, requirement, criteria, limitation, including the state sitting on the standard required, which can effectively result in statewide prohibition land disposal that has substance pollutants and contamination should not apply. The standard state standard requirement, criteria, limitations deferred in Clause 2 shall apply with each of the following conditions is met. The state standard requirement, criteria, limitation, general applicability was adopted in formal means. The state standard requirement, criteria, limitation adopted by based on the hydrological, geological relevant consideration not adopted for the precluding remedial action land is sold for release under the related protection of human health environment. 3. The state arranged for the ensure the payment and criminal cost of utilizing facility disposition hazardous substance pollutants contamination concern with the remedial action and select with the president does not conform with the state standard with the state initiative the law against the Environmental Protection Agency May 1st, 1986 with the state with the remedial action form of the standard the president should conform with the remedial action state standard the state shall assure the availability of the facility for the remedial action in the case of any of the removal of remedial action involved with the transfer of the hazardous substance pollutant and contamination authorized by the hazardous substance of the pollutant and contamination shall be only transferred by the facility operating compliant with the section 3004-3005 Solid Waste Disposal Act, where applicable compliant with the Toxic Substance Control Act and other applicable federal law, all applicable state law requirements and substance pollutants contamination may be transferred to land disposal facility. Only the president determines both the following requirements are met with the unit of the hazardous substance pollutant contamination transfer of the not releasing hazardous waste that constitute the air over the groundwater and surface water and soil. Of such release other than units of the facility are being controlled by the corrective action group of the approved administrator subpart C of the Solid Waste Disposal Act. Alright, the president shall notify the owner and operator of such facility. Determination of the paragraph. The president shall make the remedial action meet the requirements of paragraph 1 that does not attain the level of stand control at the level of equivalent level legally applicable and relevantly appropriate standard requirement criteria limitation required in paragraph 2 including the paragraph B of the thereof, and if the president finds that A, the remedial action is selected within only part of the total remedial action of the action level of the stand with the control completely compliant with the set requirement of the facility within greater risk than human health with environmental alternative option compliant with the such requirement technically and practically engineering respectively the remedial action selected with the attainment of the standard performance equivalent required otherwise applicable standard requirement criteria limitation otherwise another method approach. With respect to standards, requirement criteria limitations say that not consistent with the demonstration of the limitation consistent with the implied standard requirement criteria limitations of similar circumstances and remedial actions within the state. Alright. 5F. In case of the remedial action, I want to take this solely within section 104, section of the fund, the selection of remedial action, attention such the level of the control will provide balance between the need of the protection of public health, welfare, and environmental facility with the considerable availability amount of the funds and whether they respond with the otherwise side with the president with the threat of the public health and welfare environmental taken under consideration relative immediacy of such threats. Or the president shall publish such findings together with the explanation that appropriate documentation permanence and forward with no federal state of the law with the permission shall be required with the portion any with the removal of the remedial action consolidated entirely on site with the remedial action selected carried out in compliance on this section. The state may enforce the federal, state, and requirement criteria limitation remedial action required in conformity with the Act of the United States of the District Court District of which facility located in consent with the decree required with the parties for the attempt of the expeditiously resolve of the disagreements concerning the implementation of remedial action formally appropriated federal state agencies where parties agree to consent the decree with the move to provide administrative enforcement of the consent the agreement that shall contain the stipulated penalty violation decree amount not exceeding $25,000 per day which may be enforced by the president either by the president or the state, but the stipulated penalties shall not be constructed in impaired effect of the authority to order compliance with the specific terms of such decree. Or your state involvement, the president shall promulgate regulation provided the substantial meaning involvement by each of the state involvement and initiating development and selection of remedial actions undertake with the regulation with the minimum shall each of the following state increment and the decision what to perform the preliminary assessment in the site and inspections allocation responsibility or hazard rings and system state occurrence for the latent sites of the national priority list state participation in long-term planning process of remedial sites of the state reasonable opportunity of the state to review the comment with each of the following remedial investigation feasible survey all data technical documents leading to the issuance of the plan and remedial action identified with the remedial investigation feasible survey the engineering design following the selection of the final remediation other technical data reporting relating to implementation remedy and proposed finding of the decision of the president to exercise authority over the D4 F. Notice that state negotiation potential responsible parties regarding this scope of the aim of the response action facility state with the opportunity to participate in such of the negotiation subject paragraph 2 with the party of any settlement. Notice of the state opportunity to commit with the president proposed land remedial actions will the alternative plans under consideration plans proposed decision regarding selection of the remedial action site with the company response to the comments submitted with the state with including explanation regarding any of the decisions subject subsection D4 will comply with the promulgated state with the copy of the site with the permission provided to the state. 8. Notice of the explanation of the proposed state with which was located prior to the promulgation of the regulation presidential note of the state regulation potential responsibility regarding the scope of the aim of the response action facility of the state with the state with the participating in the negotiation subject to paragraph 2 in the settlement of the paragraph shall apply the remedial actions section 106 for at least 30 days prior to the entering the consent of the degree of the president proposed the select of the remedial action does not attain the legal applicability relevant and appropriate standard requirement criteria limitation authority of the section D4 of the president shall provide the opportunity for the state on concur and not concur with such selection if the state concur with the state may become a signatory to the consent of the decree. State does not concur with the selection state with the desire of the remedial action conform the same with the requirement of the criteria limitation state shall intervene with the action under section 106 before they enter the consent and decree to have the remedial action conform the stuff that intervene shall be a matter of right. Remedial action conform with the same requirement criteria limitation state as establishment administrative rectifying with the person what is not supported with a substantial evidence construct court determines whether remedial actions conform to the standard requirements of the criteria limitation remedial actions shall be modified by the state to become the signatory the decree with the court determines that the remedial action is not conform to the such standards of the requirement criteria limitation state pays the issue of the payment additional cost attributed with the meaning in such of the standard requirements criteria limitation remedial action should be modified by the state shall become the signatory decree. Or the president may conclude settlement negotiation potential responsible party of the state occurrences and concurrences paragraph shall apply with the remedial action facility own operative of the department agency instrumental of the United States at least 30 days prior to the publication of the president's final remedial action plan with the president proposed to select the remedial action plan does not in legal ability relatively relevant and appropriate standard with the requirement criteria limitations under the paragraph under the authority of section D4 the president shall provide the opportunity to state with concur or not to concur with the selection of the state concur but it does not act within the 30 days of the remedial action is perceived that if the state does not occur with the selection provided so paragraph that it does not remedial action conform with the standard requirement criteria limitations state of the maintain any action filed with the president notify the state the state of the selection with the remedial action state bring an action with 30 days with no occasion sole purpose of determining finding the president's support with substantial evidence such action may be brought by the United States of the district court with the district with the facility located if the state has established the administrative record of the presidential finding it is not supported substantial evidence of the remedial action must be modified to conform with the standard requirement criteria limitations. If the state fails to establish presidential finding not supported substantial evidence state within state pays 60 days of the judgment additional costs attributed to the meeting of the standard requirement criteria limitation remedial action shall be selected to meet the stuff of the standard requirement criteria limitation state fails to pay with the 60 day remedial action selected by the president shall proceed through the completion. Alright, nothing in this section precludes the court shall enjoin the federal agency taking the remedial action under related or not inconsistent with such standards requirements and criteria limitations. Section 122 settlements.